I Love Mortgage Brokering, episode 15.
Where the best mortgage brokers get better. I Love Mortgage Brokering with your host, Scott Peckford.
Hi, Broker Nation. I am thrilled to introduce our guest today, Jackson Middleton. Jackson is a mortgage broker now based out of Edmonton, Alberta. He's one of the most well-known brokers online in the country, and I'm stoked to have him on the show with me. How are you doing today, Jackson?
Hey, I'm doing great, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm glad. I've been trying to keep this up with you for a while, so I'm stoked that we get to finally chat. So I always like to start off by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Sure. Okay, I got started mortgage brokering in about 2007. Now, I know it sounds exciting, but I was actually running a delivery company before that from about 2003 to 2006, and I was watching property prices in Regina on houses. I owned a house, but I was watching prices, and I was just thinking, there's going to be something happening here. Now, I didn't predict the future and that prices were going to go up, but in 2006, 2007, I ended up buying 3 properties right away and then picked up my 4th. But when I was going to buy that property, I said, I was self-employed, running my own business, a delivery company. I was making decent money, filed my taxes, everything was legit. And I remember I was told, yeah, you should talk to a mortgage broker. Well, the first house that I wanted to buy was a $15,000 house in the hood. If you can believe it, $15,000.
That's awesome.
They still had houses for that cheap. This was Regina, Saskatchewan in 2006. So I went into the mortgage broker's office, gave him all my papers, and he basically just sat there and shook his head, no. And I'm like, okay. He goes, yeah, no, we can't do this for you. Just no. Oh, perfect. Oh, well, thanks. So then I went into the TD Bank, and I was sitting across from a suit, and he just kind of looked at me and just kind of gave me a dirty look and said no, like I was wasting his time. So I actually sat in front of another mortgage broker, and she said no. I was declined 3 times on trying to buy this property. I thought property was going to be moving up, and nothing. So I ended up getting into business with my dad. He owned his house, and he put a small mortgage against his house. We didn't end up buying that property. But the problem that I found out? Why they wouldn't qualify me for that house?
Why?
It wasn't worth enough. I went to 3 separate people, and nobody told me that, hey, if you wanted to, you could qualify for about $250,000. We just can't lend you $15,000 because nobody goes that low.
Right. So they didn't take the time to educate you or anything.
Nobody took any time to educate me. And I sat in front of 3 separate people. And for me, there was this time when I bought some houses. We leveraged my parents' house. We got the money there. We bought some houses with cash, picked up one for $45,000, one for $50,000. Now all the houses just went up in price. And at that time, we sold some of them, and I took the money that I made from selling those properties and started my mortgage brokerage in 2007. Basically there's nobody out there that's really taking care of people. So I wanted to get into the business to start mortgage brokering in Regina, Saskatchewan to really help people out, the first-time home buyers. So I got in a good time because, well, the market was taken off. It was competitive offers. The mortgage fairy was just going around literally distributing deals. So it was super good. I learned a lot really fast, but basically got into the business from the money that I'd made flipping properties and got into the business with the mandate of helping first-time home buyers.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I don't have that good of a, my entry story is nowhere near that good. That 3 no's, and then it's like, hey, this seems, what's wrong with this picture? And then using that as the catalyst to kick you off your mortgage career, which you've kind of had. It's a pretty interesting path that you've been on, the time that I've known you and the conversations we've had. So yeah, that's awesome how you took other people's rejection and lack of service and saw an opportunity. So I like to one of the things I like to do is I love quotes. I think quotes are fantastic because they distill an idea right down to a really short amount of information that you can do something with. And I have a lot that have meant something to me. So do you have a quote that you in your life or business that has impacted you?
I do. Where I built my business, when I got started, again, I said the mortgage fairy was floating around handing out deals. But when I really got down to it and I started to have to earn business, I got involved with social media. And it was a social media quote that really got me. And it could be applied to anything, but as far as how I looked at social media, and a rough quote, don't know the source, but people don't care about you until you prove you care about them. And that to me was one of those it was like the aha moment, because when you're using social media to promote yourself, the typical mortgage broker, real estate agent, insurance agent, whatever, they typically just get on there and talk about themselves. Nobody cares about you until you prove you care about them. So I took the other approach and joined social media and started caring about people. What I would do was look for a hashtag. So my city in Regina was hashtag YQR. So I would look for somebody who was talking on the YQR hashtag and try and answer a question or be positive or contribute. One story that I tell is somebody put on the hashtag YQR, hey, new to YQR, looking for an Italian syrup for my coffee. Any help? So I responded right away and said, absolutely, go to Ambassador Coffee. Kyle will take care of you. Here's the Google map. That was it. She replied, thank you. Hey, no problems. We followed each other, and that was that. About 3 days later, she hit me with, hey, talk to Kyle. He took care of me. Thank you so much. I said, hey, no problem. Glad you were taken care of. About 3 weeks later, she sends me a direct message on Twitter, which is kind of like a private message. And she says, my husband and I aren't ready to buy a house yet, but when we are, can you do our mortgage for us?
That's awesome.
I had never said, hey, I'm a mortgage broker here, talk to me. Nothing like that. It was simply just trying to show that I cared about her. And then she went and showed she cared about me by giving me the business. So she obviously saw on my profile that I was a mortgage broker. And actually, 6 months later, I closed their mortgage, and it was a very, very nice mortgage, good commission. And I did nothing but showed I care. So that, to me, people don't care about you until you prove you care about them, is kind of how I've built my business on this social media side.
Dude, you're so easy to interview. It's ridiculous. Because I was going to say to you, except you didn't give me a chance, I was going to say, hey, that's a great quote. Can you give me an example? And you're like, boom, I got an example. I love this. This is like, you're making this, it's awesome. And it's a great story. I totally agree. People just vomit their business or what, me. And all you do is, if you imagine if you go to a party and if you do that, nobody's going to invite you back.
Yeah, no, it's people don't understand that, social media or any type of marketing it's like a cocktail party. Well, could you imagine, like, let's take if you jump on Twitter or Facebook and you're always talking about yourself, you're always putting out your business card, like, that's the equivalent of going to an in-person business networking, taking 2 steps into the room and throwing 40 business cards in the room and walking out. Like, that's really what it is. It's how deep did you really try to build a relationship if all you talk about is yourself? Yeah. You have to go out, get to know people. And there's a lot of great people who do that in real life who just don't understand social media. They don't understand the language. And that's why when you kind of put it in real life versus online, just take what you do in real life and put it online. Don't be a chump and actually show that you care about people.
Right. You know what? I've had that happen to me once. I was at this networking event and I was just talking to a friend about something to do with real estate. And this realtor walks over and just like literally throws her card at me. And she's like, hey, here's my card. And I'm like, what do I want? I was kind of like, thanks, but I didn't ask for your card. And you just basically, intruded in my conversation. It was just sort of, there was no chance I was ever going to call her to do any work with her.
Yeah, it's so awkward.
Okay, yeah, that's a fantastic story, and it's a good reminder for people about that social networking is just like any form of communication. You can't don't be a dweeb. I gotta keep this a clean podcast so that I don't have to.
I hear you.
I almost said something because you got me jacked up. I'm like, just don't be a dweeb. I can say that. So one of the things I've also noticed about is that for me anyways, failure. I've made lots of mistakes. I've, done a lot of things and there's always a lesson in it. So can you share with me an example of something you failed at and then the lesson that you took from it once you looking back?
Wow. Great question. I think if I'm being honest, I think every failure, it's about learning from your failures. For me, I think one of the, and I got to be careful here because I started with a franchise. I started brokering in 2007 with a franchise, and I worked for 2.5 years with that franchise, and it was good. Now, when the broker owner approached me at the end of the 2.5 years, he wanted to sell me the business, and okay, well, what value is there in a brokerage? And that was what I was asking. So it was at that point when it was kind of like, oh, well, I'd never looked around. I'd never thought to take a look around. I think one of the biggest failures that I had at that time was that I wasn't constantly looking for the best situation for me. Now, where I got to be careful is with mortgage brokers. Now, I'm certainly not an advocate for jumping from brokerage to brokerage looking for the best split, but I found that I was with a particular outfit where I wasn't getting the best lender relationships for my clients. And I want to be the broker who is making sure that my clients are taken care of. So when he approached me to buy the brokerage and I looked at it and said, well, what's it worth? And he wanted to make a pretty significant number out of it. And it was kind of, you know what? Well, what can I do for free? So I actually ended up looking and being able to set
That's
up
a good question.
Well, yeah, a brokerage is, what's it worth? I don't know. Well, I found that I could set up a brokerage on my own, and had I have done that a year previous, I would have made an extra $60,000. So that tells you that my splits weren't really good. I wasn't trying to get the best split, but we weren't dealing with the lenders that could take care of my clients. So I signed on with the lenders. I think one of my biggest failures was not being more proactive to be able to take care of my clients. Now, I think I've rectified that. I then went from that brokerage for 2.5 years, and I ran my own brokerage for 3 years at, I called it Highland Mortgage Partners, and I was an independent, and that was good. But even then, I had to make the same kind of adjustment for my clients because I was an independent doing, $25 million, which means that I've got 2 status lenders. And if the broker channel advocates choice, is choice really between 2 lenders? I mean, if one lender left the marketplace, well, now I'm just a road rep for a single lender. So, I mean, for me, it was the next step was, okay, what am I going to do with my business? And I actually learned from that failure, and I progressed and actually sold off my business to a company called First Foundation, where I'm now working.
Right. That's a fantastic. I mean, nobody wants to fail, but I actually have a story where I won't get into it right now, but I once bought into a brokerage and my wife was dead set against it. She's like, I think you should wait. It's a bad idea. And I said, yeah, I agree. I won't. And then I went and I did it. And 6 months later, it was a huge mistake. And so, my lesson is I should have listened to my wife.
Yeah, that's always a good one. When the wife says, they're pretty intuitive.
They do. They have this in the sixth sense, and they're just like, something's off about this. And anyway, in that case, that was my lesson. But yeah, and how do you evaluate the value of something when there's no guarantee on renewals? Like it's very ambiguous for sure.
Well, yeah, and it was funny because a week after I kind of started looking into it, one of the guys left, and that was a third of the income. So I was basically being approached to purchase my value, and I was half the business. Well, why would I buy? So and I actually ended up taking my business and starting my, which I think it was a good step for me, but I think I failed to understand that not one model is the only way. And I think I made the changes, which was good. And
no, that's awesome.
There's certainly a lot to learn. It's the when you think that either one way is the only way. I'm guilty of that. I think that's probably been my biggest failure, not just as a broker, but just believing that one way is the only way. Let's face it, this economy is changing. The landscape in Canada for mortgages is changing. If you can't adapt to it, you're not going to survive. So the biggest failure is just kind of putting the blinders on and keep doing what you're doing despite its success. You have to be able to adapt.
Right. That's so good, man. I love it. I always listen to my interviews a second time because when I'm in the interview, I'm always trying to stay in the interview, but I'm going to be listening to this one again. It's awesome. I'm only half done. So, okay. Another thing I find about successful brokers is they always have systems and processes. It's not just random, right? You can't scale with random. So, and I like to ask about an administrative process. I know that's not something you're involved in now, but maybe you are involved overseeing it. So can you tell me about a specific administrative process that you maybe wasn't working the way you liked, and then how you adjusted it and what the outcome was once you made that adjustment?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, that's a great question because for me, the administration process was one of the sticking points with me. I was a broker that when I was brokering full time, I would be doing anywhere from 22 to 25 million. And that's an administration nightmare if you're not administrative. Because I think that there's 2 types of people. There's salespeople and administrative people. Typically, Salespeople aren't administrative, and administrative people can't sell. So a successful broker is the one who can go generate the business and has the systems in place to make up for their lack of natural administration gifting, if that makes sense. I am certainly not an administrative person. And what I found was when I was doing that much business, I was getting by on my natural ability to communicate with people, but I wasn't giving them the top-end service that when I set out as a mortgage broker to give my clients, I wasn't giving them that anymore. I was just too busy. I didn't have the time to make the meetings. I didn't have the time to, follow up and make sure they felt good about the process. Yes, you can get the deal done. Yeah, you can run the paperwork through, but if the client's sitting at home on their couch biting their nails, wondering if it's going through, and then, we're good, well, that doesn't help anybody. The client needs to feel a part of the process. They need to understand what's going on. You have to alleviate fears. You have to help them with their concerns. And I just didn't have the time to do that. So in typical fashion for me, I made a huge move, and I actually went out and sold my brokerage. I looked at First Foundation residential mortgages. Gord McCallum is the owner of First Foundation, and he realized this about 5 years ago, and he separated the client acquisition and the underwriting process, or the administration of the files. So he hired full-time brokers on salary to close his deals for him. And I had never seen this model before. I know it existed, but this was the first time I came across it and said, you know what? If I had a broker that was actually writing my files for me and I could just go out and turn more business, that is the best way. So rather than a simple administrative process that I've tweaked, I actually completely overhauled my business and sold my brokerage to First Foundation, became the arm of First Foundation in Saskatchewan, so just changed from Highland Mortgage Partners to First Foundation, worked with brokers here, and this was in 2013, January of 2013, became the executive editor of the blog, so I managed all of the online marketing efforts for First Foundation. Within the last 3 months here, I've gotten a promotion to VP of Sales and Marketing. Now, First Foundation does do the mortgages, insurance, and financial planning, so I've got a little bit more, but yeah, as far as the broker owner, doing everything, my administrative process that I tweaked, I got to the end of my rope. I couldn't do any more. So I completely changed it and kind of outsourced the entire administrative process to other members of my team.
I love that. That's exactly what I was about to say. You instead of tweaking the process, you just outsourced the entire thing and said, you know what? I'm just going to let someone else let that be their full-time job, and I'll focus on my strengths, which one of them is obviously communication. So communicating with people and in different formats out online and in person and stuff. But yeah, okay, that's a fantastic answer. So now I'm going to flip that because this is going to actually be in your area of strength. So I also noticed that people, they also they'll have a sales process. And so a sales, we're talking about administrative. So can you tell me about a sales process that maybe wasn't working as well as you'd like and how you made a change and what kind of outcome you got?
Yeah, that's awesome. I think this is the most important thing that mortgage brokers need to be talking about. For me, as we brought the mortgages, as I moved my brokerage over to First Foundation, and now as I'm more in a VP role, over the last 3 months, we've been really evaluating how fast we get back to our clients. The online marketplace, if you're a mortgage broker and you're competing in the online marketplace, it's getting tougher. First Foundation's been doing it for a long, long time, and we've been steadily increasing our volume of leads, but our closing ratio is going down. The quality of applicants is going down, or we're losing deals to, the rate hub sites, the rate supermarket, all the rate discounters. We're not rate discounters. We just provide good customer service. So we thought, but we will generate anywhere from, 6 to 10 leads every day. And when we're looking at them in the morning, to follow up on a lead, it's going to take you half an hour to an hour. Well, if you're a broker and you're doing that and you're managing your full workflow, you might take a day or two to get back to a client who's submitted online. But when you look at the research online, the stats are crazy on how fast you actually have to be if you want any success at at closing that deal. If you, the stat that I like the best is, I think you've got the source of this was an insurance thing down in the States, but I mean, it was very, very large. But basically what the stat was you have a 394% better chance of closing the deal if you respond to that client within the first 5 minutes of them submitting their application online.
Wow.
And to me, that was just huge. Like 5 minutes? Sometimes we could go a day without it. But what we've realized is, when somebody's sitting on the computer and they submit an application to you, they want to hear from you. But we all kind of feel like we're this Canadian kind of, don't want to intrude. No, they've given you their information. They want to hear from you. The faster you can get in touch with them, the better chance you have of closing that deal. So we've completely restructured how we handle our lead how we handle our lead follow-up, and we've got a rapid response team. We actually hired someone specifically to sit in the office and basically follow up with the leads. That's half of her job, and then she works at going through the rest of our book, making sure we're following up on our pre-approvals. But our mandate is to be in touch with everybody within 20 minutes. And just anecdotally, from where I'm at right now, we're on pace to double our business just by how we handle and the speed at which we handle our leads.
Wow, that's really good advice. Yeah, you know what? You're right, because but again, you guys have the system, you have the team and a system that you can but that principle can apply to even the the single broker who's gets a lead and maybe doesn't follow up till the next day. And that's great advice about people want to hear from you.
And we kind of get the feeling like, I don't want to be intrusive. I don't want to intrude. No, if somebody says call me, call them and do it right away. And I've been guilty of that. It's funny because I was thinking, and that's the scenario I was playing in my head was, really? 5 minutes? There's no way. There's no way I'd feel like they were just intruding in my personal space. Well, it's funny. I'm thinking this, and then I go online and I'm looking for the best way to get in touch with the client. So I'm thinking about how fast and the best method to get in touch with the client. So I'm looking for an online video messaging service. And I look at a company called vSnap, and then I look at another company, and I submitted a form. Yes, I'd like more information. Well, I had moved from one company's page to another company's page, and the form that I filled out, they called me within 3 minutes. I talked with them. I got the free trial, and after the fact, I'm sitting there thinking, they just called me in 3 minutes, and I'm doing business with them now.
Right.
And it wasn't intrusive. It didn't feel like they were invading my space. So it really works. Speed, if you're a mortgage broker and you're targeting any type of business online, if you've got an online application and somebody fills that out, you have to get a hold of them as fast as you can. Have it come to your phone, have it send you a text message, whatever you have to do to respond to that person, even if it's just a response that says, hey, I've got your information's safe with me. Is there a time tomorrow when I can give you a call? Even that personalized response is what people want to see. And your chances of closing that business, it's incredibly higher. And we've been seeing huge success with it. We have not had any kickback on, whoa, sorry, I wasn't expecting a call so fast. We've been getting, hey, thanks so much for calling. I really appreciate it. Let's talk.
That's brilliant. Okay, another area that I've noticed too, that a lot of conversations been around, and I've been reading in the magazines, is the need to diversify your income. So as mortgage brokers, obviously we have mortgages and then sometimes the creditor insurance. And I know this is a great question for you guys because you're totally doing this. So what's your sort of take on diversifying your income, and how can brokers do this successfully?
Okay, the two parts to that question. First is a broker. Now, I'm going to go on the record and say, I think if you're a mortgage broker, you're best suited to niche out. Get yourself a niche market. Don't be everything to everybody. You have to have the discipline to say no to certain types of business, and you have to become an expert. Now, that's on a broker side. So if you want to focus in on first-time home buyers who are getting gifts from their parents, and that's what you want to go after, become the very best at that. But don't pretend that you can do that business and line of credits and rental properties and commercial and farmland. It just doesn't work. You cannot be good at every type of broker. That's just my personal opinion. Now, as far as brokerages go, yes, what is brokerage worth? What is the average broker owner With every mortgage broker, the first question the mortgage brokers ask if they're looking to candidate in a new business is, what are my splits going to be? And the second question is, are you sure can't be higher? Mm-hmm. You know, like mortgage brokers just want the most, and you can't blame them for it. But the model, the brokerage model, is flawed. The broker doesn't make anything, assumes most of the risk. To me, it doesn't make sense. So as far as a mortgage brokerage is concerned, how is the broker owner going to make money going forward? He has to diversify. You have to figure out, how can we ever sell our business? That was the question I had at Highland Mortgage Partners. I'm pretty much a solo show. Who's going to buy my book of business on a most of my mortgages are 5-year fixed or variable. So my book's going to turn over once every 3 to 5 years, and the banks have an 85% retention rate. Well, my book's worth nothing. So if you're a broker owner or a brokerage owner, you have to be looking for ways to add value to your book. And at First Foundation, Gord McCallum started an insurance division. And we've actually just opened up a financial planning division. So we do the life insurance, we do home insurance, auto insurance, commercial insurance, which allows us to target small business clients. And when you've got a small business client that needs commercial insurance, perfect. They come in from there. Well, now we can have that conversation about, well, what are you doing for your financial planning? Like, are you writing off most of your income? Because if you've got a $30,000 income and that's all you're showing on your line 150, you're not really qualifying for a mortgage right now. So we actually can work with clients on a kind of a financial hub. We're more of a center. We're diversified. And to be quite honest, isn't that just the bank's model? The more lines of business you have with certain clients, the higher their loyalty is. And that's where we've seen people come to us for auto insurance. We can save them money on our auto insurance, and they become mortgage clients. And it's super convenient to have to be able to write home insurance in-house when we've got mortgage clients. So we've started cross-referring from business to business within our own building, and now we can place a value on our book of business on the mortgage side because we've got insurance. And we can say this percentage of our business converts to insurance. This insurance business, it allows us to make money on a year-over-year basis.
Right. No, that's you guys have done a very good job of that compared to, like, a lot of people are doing it on a smaller scale, but Gord doesn't do anything on a small scale. So
no,
I'm not surprised. He's gonna take over the world, and you two together, that'll be great. Another thing I find is I've got a family, you've got a family. It's gotten bigger recently, and it's probably if you have your way, it'll be even larger. So how do you balance running your mortgage practice and having your family?
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. I've got a wife and 4 kids. My wife stays home with our kids because I don't know that there's a job out there that she could do that would cover the cost of daycare. So not that really means anything. She stays home because she loves the kids and she wants to take care of them. But I mean, yeah, it's hard. One of the things that I did was one of the other reasons that I sold my brokerage was, I was putting in 12 to 14 hours a day, 5-6 days a week. That's hard. That's easy when you're a single guy. When you're married, it's not necessarily the best for your marriage. When you've got a couple of kids, now you're kind of saying, well, is all of this work worth it? So yeah, for me, I've taken a pay cut, but I've got a work-life balance. Yeah, I still work in the evenings. I do. I don't think you'll ever keep me away from my work, but I love what I do. And I think that's the difference. I think I truly am passionate about what I do. I love talking with people. I love the financial services industry. I love mortgages. That might sound crazy to some people, but I love helping people. It's the helping people out. It's the educational part. Do I like dealing with, on a Friday afternoon, a condition of financing and an underwriter who's overworked and not responding to my documents? No, I hate that part, but I left that part go. So I've taken out the stress out. I'm still involved, but it's how do you find a work-life balance? Carefully.
Careful. That's a really good answer. Really good answer.
Again, it's one of those things you just got to keep working at it.
Right.
Because if you're a typical entrepreneur in this industry, you're going to probably work too much, and you got to pull it back. And I think part of the conversation earlier, listen to your wife. Listen, if you're a woman in this industry, listen to your husband. and be a part of that. Like
Right.
always be listening and always, do it carefully.
Carefully. Dude, I'm loving this interview. So, okay, I'm gonna move to the rapid fire questions. So these ones you can answer with a little shorter answer. So, what is the number one thing holding most mortgage brokers back from being successful?
They're chumps.
They're chumps?
Yeah, they're all about themselves. I think that's it. It's go back to my quote. Nobody cares about you until you care about them. A lot of people get into this industry because they think it's about them. They think it's an easy way to make money. Maybe that they've been told by somebody, oh yeah, you got to do this. But no, I mean, I think that if you're getting into this industry, you got to be passionate about people. You got to be passionate about the process, about teaching people and helping people. Don't be in this business for a paycheck. That was what I would say.
Right. That's an awesome answer. And if do you have an internet? I know this is a great question for you because you're really tied in with the tech stuff. So do you have an internet resource software program, kind of like an Evernote, that you use in your business that you really like, you couldn't live without?
See, I'm an always change it up kind of guy. I don't really have one.
What's working right now? What about right now? Like, I know if it's okay if it changes in 3 months, but what today are you excited about? You're like, this is really helping me out.
I would have to say HubSpot. We've been looking at HubSpot, just more of the content marketing. If you're looking for a good resource on content marketing, HubSpot.com is they've got so many stuff about ebooks and content marketing and getting value and it's a software, it's a tool. I'm a HubSpot partner. Now we don't actually use it for First Foundation, but just the concepts behind it's incredible, and it's helping me to do my job better. Now I use Dropbox. I use Evernote. The funny thing is there's probably not anything that I am not on, because that's just kind of when it's new and it's shiny, I love it. And I go straight to it. So for me to say one thing is better than the other, no, I'd say HubSpot's a great resource.
Okay, cool. That's a great. And then if you had a book that you could recommend to our listeners, what would it be?
I always say Good to Great, because it's just, if you haven't read Good to Great, you need to. Other than that, oh man, Unmarketing by Scott Stratton's a really good book. I love reading too. Rework is another good book. I could go on and probably list 100 books, but yeah, I would say if you're talking about building your business and figuring out, what your business looks like and what it should look like, Good to Great's an excellent book. If you're learning about social media, definitely Unmarketing.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then last question. So this is one of my favorites. If you could jump into the DeLorean, remember the movie Back to the Future?
Absolutely. I
watched it the other day for the first time in a while. I was like, man, there's so much product placement in that movie. Like, they got Pepsi, they've got and
I know.
It's so obvious. You're like, I can't believe that, and at the time I never noticed it, but for sure there's, Nike, that it was just crazy, all the product placement in that movie.
Yeah.
Sorry, I digress. Okay, here's the question. So if you got the DeLorean and you can travel to, there's one time that it's the date set to the first day you started as a mortgage broker, and you could travel back those 7 years, and you could sit down with yourself for 15 minutes and give yourself 3 pieces of advice, what would you say to yourself?
Oh man, that's I looked at this, and I guess the first thing would be find balance. I think where I've, part of my success and part of my failure in business is that when I'm in, I'm all in and I just go for it. But to what expense? You asked the great question about how do you balance running a business, mortgage practice, and your family. Well, I failed at that for a lot of years. And I think if I could sit down, talk to myself in the future, I'd say, look, you don't have to kill 100 deals in your first year. Yeah, you got to work like you got to, but not at the expense of what you love. Figure out what you really want to do and go after it. I felt validated by the amount of deals I was doing and the numbers that I was making. But to what end? To alienate my family? To not be a dad that saw his kids grow up? Like, I know it sounds so cliche, but we just assume that it's cliche so we don't let it actually penetrate. Because people would say to me, hey man, you got to slow down. It's like, no, I'm just working, man. I'm doing this. And it's like, no, you could really, you probably don't need to be working. No, I found, there was pride at working at 2 a.m, at 3 a.m, and being up and, not just working at the times, but letting people know that you were working at that time. Find balance. That's what I would say to me. I would say, take care of your health. Take care of your family. Spend time doing the things you like. Yeah, and I know I love working, but take some time away. I think there was a time there for 4 straight years that I never took a break. Get away from your phone. Your world won't explode if you get away from your phone. That's number 1, find balance. Number 2, get away from your phone. I shut my phone off for a week here this last year. It was incredible. I forgot what silence was like.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. And when I came back, not everybody even knew that I was gone. So we're certainly not as important as we think we are. I'm not saying completely neglect your clients. Of course, have a plan in place for what you want to do. But learn to shut off your phone. And I guess number 3 would be, for me, I think there was a lot of decisions that I didn't make because I didn't jump on it. Now, that was more early on. I think I've learned from it. So, I think I would have made some decisions quicker. I think I would have, not found my value in money, but by the service that I was providing. So
what would number 3 be then? What's number 3? You got find balance, get away from your phone, and then how would you, how succinct?
Yeah. I don't know. That's the thing. I think it's kind of more like, I don't know. I'm stumped.
Okay, we can leave it at 2.
A third one. Yeah, let's leave it at 2. But I think to find balance is the huge one for me. And get away from your phone.
Well, Jackson, I have absolutely loved this interview. You are so easy to interview because you're so good at communicating and you're so passionate, and you literally are like jumping ahead before I'm asking you questions. So how can people find you online?
Hit me on Twitter @KiltedBroker. I pretty much, if you Google Kilted Broker, at one point I had a business card that all it said was the Kilted Broker. Google it. And then, of course, it wasn't Saskatchewan license compliant, so I had to get a new business card. But if you Google me, I think I'm on the first 18 or 20 pages of Google. So I'd love to connect with you on social media. If you're a mortgage broker and you want to talk to me, connect with me. I'm certainly not afraid of talking. And, Scott, I love what you're doing here. I love the industry focus. I like talking to the industry. I like because I do the same. I learn from people in the industry. I like hearing what they've got to say. I like reading the CMP magazine and seeing the different takes on it. It's, I think as an industry, we can certainly work together. I don't look at mortgage brokers as my competition. The bank at this time, what are we, July 2014? Banks have 70 to 75% of the market share. Let's go after them. Let's work together as brokers, go after the banks, take all of their mortgages off their desk, and once we've got 90% of market share, then I'll start to go after mortgage brokers. But right now, I think we should all be working together. I think we should be working together to help our lending partners be efficient. And I certainly have no problems working towards a better mortgage broker industry in Canada.
Dude, that's awesome. And then, are you guys hiring?
Yeah, kind of. We're always looking for good people.
So if somebody, I guess they can reach out to you on Twitter or find you and then say, hey, look, I'd like to chat and see and if there's a fit. I just like to ask that because if somebody listens to this and they go, hey, you know what, he seems like a cool guy, I'd like to maybe connect with him, then they can decide to do it themselves.
Yeah, let me put this out there. We're in Alberta and Saskatchewan right now. We would like to be in other provinces, but it's certainly not going to be us moving into other provinces on our own strength. We're always looking to do business with good people who see things the same as we do, and and who are doing good business. So we're always open to a conversation. But I will say this: we move slow because it's got to be right. Right. You gotta, you don't, like even what you said. You rushed into a decision and it was a bad one. Yeah, no, we're going to feel things out for a long time before anything really gets done.
Right. Well, Broker Nation, I hope you've enjoyed this interview. I know I have. And you can, to get the show notes and all the links and track down Jackson, just go to ilovemortgagebrokering.com. Jackson, thanks so much for your time, man. I have loved this chat.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. Thanks, Scott.
Where the best mortgage brokers get better. I Love Mortgage Brokering with your host, Scott Peckford.
Hi, Broker Nation. If you enjoyed this interview, please take a minute, visit iTunes, and rate this podcast. If you do, you'll get 3 deals in the next month. Okay, that's not true, but I would really appreciate it. Also, I want to invite you to join me on a quest. After every episode, I personally take 5 minutes and think about one thing or one idea I can use to improve my mortgage business. I encourage you to do the same. Over the next 12 months, I plan to do 100 interviews and make 100 improvements. I'm going to track these to see how they impact my business and, more importantly, my bottom line. Visit ilovemortgagebrokering.com and post in the show notes what one thing you plan to do differently after listening to this interview, and check out what other brokers are sharing. Also, if you'd like to connect with me, fire me an email at scott@robyourbank.com. I love hearing from passionate mortgage professionals who are interested in improving their business. Until next time, rock on.